There must be a good reason. The complaint has to have some basis to it. What do you mean we stole the land? Why did we steal the land? How did they get the land? They also stole it. They also conquered it. The Canaanim, for example, conquered it from Shem. And we conquered it from them. So since when is conquest a sin? It's our land. What do they mean you're a bunch of thieves? And the Rebbe's answer is so profound. And you can understand what's going on today. Of course, you have a right to conquer the land. But a land you conquer doesn't become a Jewish land. If you conquer a land, it doesn't become yours forever. Friend, it's yours now. And if someone else takes over and wins the war and battle against you guys, then that person, everyone has a chance. You took away the opportunity of any nation of the world to ever feel comfortable in your land. You made Israel a holy land. How dare you do that? How dare you rob the land of its mundanity, of its chol? You made chol kodesh. How dare you make a land Jewish? You belong in heaven. You're the God's chosen people. Heaven is good for you. Earth, that's our domain. How dare you take earth and make it holy? This is what they were saying. And nobody will ever feel comfortable. As long as you guys are alive, as long as the Jews survive, the land is theirs. Therefore, that's why they want to kill Jews. If there are no longer any Jews, then the land no longer is theirs, and then there's no holiness anymore. They realize the holiness of the land is because the Jews are holy, and they can't tolerate that. That's the problem. They're not just arguing against conquest. How dare you conquer our land? They also conquered land. But when they conquered land, they didn't transform it. When we conquered the land, we made it into a Jewish land, a holy land. That's what they can't take. Okay. One more thing. This week's parsha is something very interesting. I just saw it today, this morning, for davening. There's a pasuk that says, "V'chagotem oto chag l'Hashem, chukat olam tchaguhu." You want to celebrate a holiday, l'Hashem, for God's sake, and forever shall this holiday be yours. So someone says a very beautiful insight on these words. If the only celebration of being liberated from Golus is the physical, there's no longer suffering, there's no longer bondage, no longer slavery, we're free. Then when time has come when Jews are suffering again, like the Jews during the Holocaust, you can't feel any reason to thank Hashem anymore. We're back in Mitzrayim again. Why should we thank Hashem? The only reason why we thanked him is because we were liberated. We don't feel liberated anymore. We're even worse. Our lives are abandoned completely, hefker. But if the reason why you're celebrating going out of Egypt is not the physical liberation, but your spiritual liberation, your neshamas were freed. The Jews were in the Mem Tesh Shari Tumah, the 49 gates of impurity, and they were liberated from that. If you're celebrating Chag LaHashem, the spiritual aspect of Pesach, not the physical bondage, then you know what? You'll always feel that liberation. Then chukas olam techaguhu. You will feel that forever, even if you're in difficult times physically. But your spirit is what really counts. Your ruchnius is what counts. So in order for people to always feel the liberation of the exile, of the exodus of Pesach, of the Geula of Pesach, one has to have felt that Baruch Hashem, we're no longer in that Egyptian culture. We're no longer in the state of Tumah. We're out of that. We've gotten out of that. We feel the presence of Hashem. If that's what you're feeling, that's what you're celebrating, it's an everlasting celebration. Chagostem oto chag LaHashem, not chag, celebrating yourself, your own personal freedom. Okay, now the Sikha. The Sikha, first Sikha is the one you have, page 218. I left the Sikha at home by mistake. Okay, so we talked about Bitachon and we talked about Amunah. And we discussed that it's important not to think that doing things al biderech hateva is a contradiction to Bitachon. Okay, so a person has Bitachon and Hashem will give you your livelihood. Doesn't mean you can sit and sleep a whole day and trust that Hashem will provide you with food, with everything you need without working. Hashem wants, you have to do some work too. Hashem wants that his Bracha should come through our work, through the laws of nature. And then we get the bracha. So if you did everything, al pi derech hateva, everything within the realm of nature, and it's still not working for you, then Bitachon kicks in. So here we're going to have a sikha that sometimes, for some people, and we'll soon see who, there's no need even to go through levushay hateva, the garbs of nature. You can really have Bitachon directly from Hashem. Anyone know who that person was in Chumash, that personality? Huh? No?
Yosef.
Who?
Yosef.
Yosef?
Okay.
Bidiyuk. Bidiyuk.
Yeah.
See how smart you are? Bidiyuk.
נראה, לא יודעת.
Lama, what do we find with Yosef? That he was punished. What was he punished for? He was punished when he was in jail. He told the Sar Hamashkim, the butler, can you put in a good word for me? Why was he? You think he trusted the Hamashkim? He trusted Hashem. He saw. Here is a garment in nature. Here's the guy. I just helped him. It makes sense. He'll want to help me. Return the favor. So Hashem will work through him. He wasn't trusting in him. He was trusting in Hashem. And yet he was punished. Because Yosef did not need, like we do, to go through the garments of nature. He was an exception, even more than his own father and grandparents. He was greater than Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov in that sense. And let me tell you why. Why is it that Hashem wants us, that our baruch should come through nature? What do you think?
To see Hashem even in a place where he's so concealed.
Right. Because since we feel that nature is a concealment of godliness, the test is, I know that you look at nature as something that's real and it has a standing. Thus, Hashem wants to teach you that even nature belongs to him. Since nature means something that's seemingly in your own mind distant from God. Yes, God is the author. I believe it. Yeah, sure. I believe that if not for him, there would be nature. True. But once he created it, it's reality. It's a reality that, I feel much more comfortable when things are going well for me than I need to have bitachon. I don't need to have bitachon when things are going well, right? Because it's natural. That's the problem. For people like you, we need a lesson. We need God to respond through nature, to teach you a lesson. Nature also belongs to God. But what happens if you're Yosef Hatzadik? Yosef was not in that category. Unlike even the others were, to a certain extent. Yosef was in a category where he was able to focus on the Egyptians, each Egyptian. He talked with them, he would deal with them, have conversations with them, be totally into their needs of them and also the country, and yet simultaneously, at the same time, I have competition. Okay. Same time, he would be able to be bitbonen, meditate on God. Imagine that. Two thoughts at once. It was not in other words, nature did not at all block. On the contrary, he was able to see Hashem right through the nature. It was not like he has to strain himself to ignore and put his mind away from what he sees in order to be able to focus on his tefillah, on his davening or learning. But he didn't have that problem. Even the Ovos, why were they all shepherds? They're all shepherds. You need with the best, we need to divorce ourselves from the world so we can focus best. They were on a higher madrega than the Shvatim, than the Yosef's brothers. Yosef's brother had to escape and run, otherwise they'd lose it. The others were able to stand in the middle of all the distractions, and yet have the ability to block it out. But they had to block it out. So they decided, let's be shepherds, it'll be easier. But Yosef was able to be focused on their needs. And while that was happening, he was simultaneously in a different world. He was in two worlds at once. So for him, nature is also godly. There's no need for him to have to resort to the laws of nature. God doesn't have to teach him any lesson. For him, nature is just as godly as miracles are. And he sees it. It's natural for him to see Elokus through nature, just as we see nature through natural means. There was no strain on him. He didn't have to strain himself even to put his focus on, hey, set that aside. Focus on this. he had the ability to see with nature. It helped him see godliness. Not only did it not interrupt it, it did not interfere. It actually it engendered his ability to meditate even deeper. That's incredible. So for a person like that, for Yosef, do you think God has to teach him a lesson? Nature belongs to God. So therefore, Hashem gives him straight, and that's what his problem was. Why did you have to go through nature? Why you're above that? You're above and beyond that. Why are you lowering yourself? And he was punished. Yes.
So today, especially in like the world that we live in, that's constantly going and going, isn't connecting to nature like the perfect way to see Hashem in the world? Like, I don't see how it's more of a concealment. Like, I guess I can see that, like, oh, it's like when you dig into like the nitty gritty of like the wind cycle.
Let me ask you a question. Okay, I hear what you're saying. Let me ask you a question. You have food on the table, and everything you need is right on the table. All you need is just to cook it. Do you feel the same need to ask Hashem for the food as when it doesn't seem like food is coming? You're stuck somewhere, and you're starving, and you're stuck, and you really need someone to rescue you. Where do you feel more comfortable that things are going to work out? When you have the food on your table, or when you're stuck somewhere and you're starving, you haven't eaten for 2 days? Are you gonna say you feel the same way?
Not fully the same way, but not
Partially? Okay,
massively.
you know what? I think we should change seats. You should sit here and I'll sit there. Because you are higher much bigger than I am.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, based on what you're saying, I think most normal people would feel when you have all the food on your table, I have it. It's in my reshus. When I don't have it, it's in God's domain, and I need to pray, God, please deliver.
Well, it's still in God's domain, and it's still in God's domain when it's right in front of you.
But you don't feel it as much. The proof is you don't cry and you don't daven hard. Do you? Yeah. Obviously, but I'm saying, but it does come with strain. It doesn't come easy. Is it as easy? Is it as easy to feel you have what you're going to need? Is it as easy to have? Let me ask you, to have bitachon as when you don't need bitachon? When you have everything you need in life, everything is working out for you, 100%. Versus when nothing's working out for you, and it looks like it's 100% sure without a miracle a God intervening with a miracle that you're going to suffer. You feel the same way?
At the second, Hashem could take away what's right in front of you.
Okay, wow, that's true. But do you actually feel that to the same degree?
But you don't think about it like when it's happening.
That's right, because you're giving credence to nature. Listen,
You're supposed to have that, like, bitachon even when you have.
yes, yeah, I understand. Right, that's the next point on the sikha here. That the trick is, when you know your bitachon is real, when you have the same feeling of bitachon, even when you don't seem to need to have bitachon. Good, but it's not easy. It's much easier to have bitachon in one way when you need to than when you don't need to. Things are fine. Come on, reality is reality. I have it here on the table. It's in my domain. God gave it to me already. Well, here we're going to have a story with a rabbi. His name was Rabbi Yosef Seva, Yosef the elder, or Rabbi Yesa the elder, described in the Zohar, where he would pray as the food is on the table. All he needed to do is cook it. God, please give me food. So the Rebbe is going to talk about this. Why is it green? Okay. I wouldn't say greedy. I would say it's like making a little cheap the whole value of, yeah. In fact, you're not allowed to say Hallel every single day. Hallel is thanking Hashem for miracles. Every day is a miracle now. Imagine if I would wear my best clothing. Okay, we're talking to girls here. If I was wearing my green whatever, what I wear, when I don't go to a wedding, and you wear it every single day, you no longer have an enjoyment to go to a wedding because I wear it every day and cheapened it. So if I say Hallel every single day, Hallel, yeah, say Hallel, well, Hallel, what's Hallel? It takes away the chashivas of Hallel. So that's You've got a good question. That's what I was going to bring that question here. Okay, but I see you girls are on a much higher level than I am. I began to realize that. You need one?
Yeah.
Bevakasha. That is every Yiddish. Yiddish באנגלית.
We don't have that.
לא אחד, we can keep it. You don't want it? Oh, yeah. Better than verstehen. Better than verstehen. Of course. Who can even read the words in Yiddish? Who can we learn? Were you learning here?
Learn like on the side with.
You know what? You'll be better than the Bachrim, some Bachrim. Israelis can't read Yiddish. They just don't know. They can't speak it, can't even read it. Anyway, we'll go to the English. To resolve the above question, what question? It's the middle of the Sikha here. There's a question, it's about the man in next week's Parsha. The Alter Rebbe wrote a Shulchan Aruch. It was before he wrote the revised edition. It was the first edition called Mahadura Kama. Then there's Mahadura Tinyana, the second and revised edition. And he talked about the importance of saying the portion of the man in our davening in the morning. And he said he quoted from the Beis Yosef that the man teaches us that God is in control of all our food supply. We saw that by the man. You try to collect more than you needed, didn't work. You collected less than you needed, you got exactly what you needed. Whoever tried to collect more man didn't get more. Less, you got as much. You got more than you collect. You got exactly the omer. The omer is the certain amount of what you need. Wow. Then Hashem is the one who gives us our parnasa, nothing else. There's a lesson in Emunah that God is the source of our parnasa. In the second edition, he said, no. The man teaches us Bitachon. Because it was daily, you only got one day, only food supply per day. You couldn't get in advance. Trust. You got it today, I'll get it tomorrow too. Tomorrow, only one day. So you had a constant need of having Bitachon. So the man gives us a lesson of Bitachon. Why did the Alter Rebbe change from Emunah in the first edition, that the lesson of the man is Emunah, that God is in control of your sustenance? We believe that he's the source. And then in the second edition, he discussed Bitachon. So that's the question the Sikha begins with, which I didn't copy. We're starting in the middle of the Sikha. The Sikha is in Parashat Beshalach. This is in volume, what volume is this? This is volume 15. Okay. To resolve the above question, that was the question I just asked, why the Alter Rebbe changed from Emunah to Bitachon, we should first add a further point analyzing the approach to trust reflected in the conduct of Rabbi Yesa the elder, as described in the Zohar of this week's Torah reading, in connection with the man. This is a Sikha in the next week's Parsha, Beshalach, which talks about the man at the end of the Parsha. Every day, Rabbi Yesa would prepare his meal. When would he prepare his meal? Only after requesting his sustenance from God. As he would explain, a meal should not be prepared until it has been given by the king. This calls for an explanation. The food for the meal was already in his possession and only needed to be prepared, but it was already his. He has it already. It sounds like he's making a joke. As the Zohar states, he had his food for that day. What are you davening for? What then is the meaning of his request that God grant him his food? Look at footnote 41, as I mentioned about Hallel. The Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos, 118b, one who recites Hallel every day is as if he is blaspheming, making a joke out of the Hallel, giving it less value and less importance. As Rashi explains there, the early prophets ordained that Hallel, which contains words of praise and thanksgiving, be recited at appropriate times, meaning when there's miracles or special holidays. Making this a commonplace, an everyday thing, commonplace habit turns Hallel into a lighthearted song. Similarly here, praying to God every day for the food one already possesses seems unnecessary and makes the prayer appear meaningless. That was the question. Got it? It is possible, so the Rebbe says, to offer the following explanation. Our sages teach that Yosef was punished for having requested of his chief butler, mention me to Paro, quote unquote, mention me to Paro. He should not have done that. On this teaching, Rabbeinu Bachya comments, heaven forbid that Yosef was punished because he's a righteous man, he's a tzaddik. Did he really place his trust in the chief butler? God forbid. Heaven forbid to say that Yosef the righteous, Yosef HaTzadik, should place his trust in the chief butler. But rather, next page, he trusted in Hashem alone. He wasn't thinking about the butler as the source of his salvation. He only felt that God had engineered his encounter with the chief butler, so that he would perform a miracle through him. He's just a vehicle and a conduit, nothing more. Why then was Yosef punished? Isn't that the way we're supposed to do things? So why was he punished? And the answer to this question will help us answer the question we just asked about Rabbi Yosef Seva, why he davened when the food was already on his table. Why then was Yosef punished? And the answer, yeah. Raising your hand. Okay. Because in the chief butler, he saw an instrument, a casual factor through which God would send him his salvation. And it is not fitting that tzaddikim of the level of Yosef, of his stature, should seek a casual factor, meaning something that's in between. He was punished because he should have trusted that the Holy One, blessed be He, meaning Hashem, the cause of all causes alone would provide him with the appropriate casual factor without him seeking it. That Hashem would give him what he needs without having any intermediaries, any kinds of, of instruments or conduits. God himself was his source of salvation, didn't need anyone in between. Because that's, as I said before, the reason for that is because Yosef was on the Madrega where nature did not at all block or obscure to the least. And thus there was no need for Hashem to have to go through nature to teach him a lesson. You know what, Yosef? Even when you see nature, it looks like, I'm not around, I'm also here. For Yosef, there was no need for that. He was perfect. He was so in sync, so in line with the, he was aligned so well with godliness, even while he was heavily involved in nature, that there was no need for him to go through any kind of intermediary. Yes?
I think the word is casual factor, not casual.
What's the word? Oh, I'm sorry. I said casual. I'm tired. You're right, because casual has nothing to do with this. Yeah, I was wondering. Causal, right? Which is and you didn't need any causes to bring Hashem's bracha, come directly. That's why you were laughing. Okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
I was at that daily. How does that go with like those stories? Like there's the old story with there was a flood and they sent the helicopter to boat and you got to say
That's for the average. That's for average people.
Oh, okay.
You're right. The parachute comes and I want. It's a joke,
Yeah.
but for Yosef, it was not a joke. Yosef does not need any kind of intermediaries. Okay. Even Yaakov did, but not Yosef. Yes.
It's like similar when Moshe after you get with them when he went to how do you know when to what point people feel like it's like how do you know how much it's like that before you do it?
As much as nature allows for. I mean, whatever you can. If you see you still do something, you have still, ways of bringing the bracha through something you can do, then you got to do it.
But how do you know when you're supposed to pray and when you're supposed to act? You know what I'm saying?
No, I understand what you're asking, but I think it's the answer is pretty simple. As soon as you see that whatever you've tried is not working. Yeah, I mean, it's not such a hard question to answer. Yeah. Yeah. I remember Bitachon in a sikha that I scheduled to learn is not tikva. Tikva means hope. And there's a sikha that I didn't give you yet, where the Rebbe said, let me read something here before we go to further on in the sikha. And that sikha, oh, here it is. Let me just read something here. Perfect trust in Hashem means trusting even when there is not even a shadow of expectation that there is a physical source from which one's assistance could come. To refer to a common expression, when a person is sinking in the sea, heaven forbid, he will grab onto a straw to try to save himself. As long as there's still a straw to grab onto, i.e., there's still a shadow of an expectation of salvation within the material world, that's not considered bitachon. That's called I'm hoping. Putting my hopes. The story with Rachav, Rachav was this Yoris. Yehoshua ben Nun actually married her later on. He asked for her family to be saved. And she had a little red thing, sticking out, a red ribbon. What are it could snap and be gone. And she says, Tikvat chut hashani, my hope of the chut hashani, the red scarlet red ribbon will stay, and you'll notice it. The soldiers will notice it, and they won't kill us. But that's tikva, it's not bitachon. Anyway, going back to the sikha here.
If you're hoping, you're doing your part.
Right. So but tikva is not normal. It's also pretty crazy to hope to believe in 1% chance. So there you have to daven a lot. But the fact that you have something that might work takes away from the complete bitachon in Hashem. It takes away from the complete bitachon in Hashem. So again, when you see that your bracha can come through the laws of nature, do everything. If it's not working and there's a slim chance, daven, there's tikva. But when there's no tikva at all, that's when bitachon kicks in. Okay. Right. Okay. This comment has been questioned. With regard to bitachon, it is stated in Chovas HaLevavot that there is an obligation to seek causal factors, not casual, through which God's beneficence will flow. And this thesis is supported by several proofs. We don't rely on miracles. Why then was Yosef punished for seeking an instrument through which divine assistance would be expressed? This has been answered by explaining that there are two levels of trust. The natural mode, the natural mode. There are times when the manner in which divine beneficence, goodness, is elicited and proceeds to descend follows ordinary norms, conforming to the natural pattern. That's for most people, most times in one's life. As expressed in the language of Chassidus, this mode characterizes the descent and flow of divine energy that is called Mimale Kol Almim. Mimale Kol Almim and Sovet Kol Almim. Mimale Kol Almim is the godliness that's within nature, where Hashem is as multifaceted as nature is. He's in everything. Although he's one God, he's not transcendent. He's that also. But he's also in every little nook and cranny that we see in the world. He's there. Mamali means he fills, he gives credence to the worldly differences. Like Shem Elokim is the name of God when he's connected with nature. Elokim is 10 gematria as the word ha teva, nature. It's the God in the world. So if you relate to that element of godliness, then obviously things have to go through nature. The divine light which invests itself in the world. On this level, it is necessary to seek an instrument and to find conduits within nature, where this form of divine influence is conveyed specifically through the conduits of the natural order. Since you're connecting to a God who is Mimalik Olamim, who fills the world, not transcends the world, then nature is extremely important. Hashem is giving, on the level of Mimalik, Hashem is giving a lot of credence and chashivus to the world. He's saying, you see this wonderful world? I'm in it. Sovereign Kulama says there's nothing but me. Everything is null and void in the presence of the all-encompassing God. So that's another level. But when you're related to the Elikus that's within nature, then you have to go through the laws of nature to be able to get your blessing. That's one level. A, page 220. B, a supernatural mode. There are times when it's obvious that God is relating to a person or the Jewish people as a whole in a way where not just Yosef, but we see Hashem it's a miracle time. We're living in miracle times. Like in the times of when the Jewish people were in the Midbar. There are times when it is obvious that Hashem is relating to a person or the Jewish people as a whole in a way that beneficence is elicited and drawn down in a manner that does not accord with the pattern of nature. Hashem is not interested to teach you a lesson. You know what? Even nature belongs to me. Now he's trying to teach you a lesson. You think I'm nature? You think I'm the God of nature? I transcend all that. Now, exercise number 2. Start believing in the Sovev Kol Almin theory, meaning that Hashem is not within only, he's beyond. Have an exercise of beyondness. I'll give you another illustration to this with different types of mitzvahs, chukim and mishpatim, in a second. Let me first finish the paragraph here. This mode characterizes the flow of divine energy that is called Sovev, which means all-encompassing. Sovev Kol Almin, divinity that transcends all the world. Almin of the world, Kol Almin, all the world. Sovev, that transcends. When God relates to a person in such a way, a higher level of trust is required of him. He's expected to rely solely on God's control of existence, taking no steps whatsoever, rather trusting that Hashem will certainly help him by arranging an appropriate conduit for his blessing. Yosef, the righteous, was living on that level, that scale, on a daily basis. He didn't need to see miracle. He was always connected with a level of godliness that transcends nature. Should have therefore conducted himself in a manner that reflected the loftier level of Bitachon. He was punished because he failed to live up to this standard. Okay. Brought down.
Why Yosef Bitachon? Like, why מגיע לו? הוא יהיה בכזה רמות.
למה מגיע לו?
לא, הוא מגיע לו מאוד, אבל לעומת אחרים, שכאילו יעקב, וכולם שהם היו גם צדיקים.
That I can't answer. It's like asking why with Moshe and not Aaron.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he was who he was. It says like Yosef was compared to Shmini Atzeres. זה חלק מהחג הסוכות, אבל זה לא כל כך, זה גם חג, חג מסוים. Yosef is connected to number 8, but it says the others are connected to number 7. But even though 7 is Shabbos, holy, unlike the Shvatim, they were connected to 6. They were in the world. They were very much involved in the world. They had a hard time dealing. They had to escape from the hoo-ha, hustle bustle of urban society to retain their devotion to Hashem. The others were a step higher. They were like Shabbos. At Shabbos, you don't hear the phone ringing. The phone rings, you laugh at it. What are you ringing on Shabbos for? Stupid phone. You don't sound normal when you ring on Shabbos. Got the wrong day. You're above the world, but you're not in the world at the same time. You're able to blot it out. But 8, the day after Shabbos, the day that transcends Shabbos, 8 is, I can be in the world. You think being in the world is an attraction? God is limited in being transcendent. He's even beyond transcendence. He transcends transcendence. He can be in both places at once. So Yosef, because he was number 8, that's why it says Yosef was referred to. It says that his sphere is Yesod. Yesod is connected to the Bris Milah. Bris Milah is on the 8th day. There's a lot of connections between Yosef and 8. Shmini Atzeres, also Shmini is 8, the 8th day after the Sukkot is 7 days, and Shmini Atzeres is the 8th day. There's a lot of connections between Yosef. The Rebbe said, a previous Rebbe, by the way, whose name was Yosef, is the 8th generation from the Baal Shem Tov. And he made a lot of parallels between the previous Rebbe and Yosef HaTzadik. Previous Rebbe, I heard it, was known to be able to write a letter to 2 different people at the same time and talk on the phone. Try to imagine that. All Yosef have these powers now. My name is Yosef. Moshe had, it doesn't say about Moshe he was 8. It does say about Moshe had another quality that no one else had, and that was prophecy. His level of prophecy transcends everyone. He's number 1. Even Mashiach won't reach Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy. He'll be number 2 in prophecy. So Moshe's specialty is prophecy and humility. These 2 are his number, and 2 opposites: prophetic and simple and humble. The same person. That's another. These are pretty big tzaddikim over here. Not putting anyone down here, but Yosef's Indian was his specialty was to be in 2 worlds at once, and it wasn't a contradiction. It was like it was simple. It was like no strain. He had no strain. He could actually meditate on a Maimer Chassidus while he was talking to an Egyptian. At the same time, he didn't take away anything from him. He was in 2 worlds at once. So for him, there's no need to ask the butler to help you. What are you asking the butler for? What do you think Teves is all about? It's all one.
He knew he was that trouble.
Yeah. Great people know who they are. They don't brag about it, but they know who they are.
Question.
Yeah.
I follow them like, I'm gonna see that sounds like there's major advantage, like, so I'm gonna follow it, and it's like transcendent higher, but. I guess I always thought it was like. I thought Malik almond was higher because it like it fills it and like something that's just kind of like hovers above and it doesn't.
There's an advantage of one over the, there's an advantage in, each one has an advantage over the other. So the advantage is where God is so incredible that nothing exists in his space. He's one and only, transcendence. But transcendence doesn't permeate so well. I was going to give an example with chukim and mishpatim. Why are so many mitzvahs understandable? God is infinite, and he's beyond logic. And yet, so many of the mitzvahs that he's given us, we can make sense out of. The mishpatim, even the edus, like keeping Shabbos makes sense. He rested. Every Yom Tov makes sense, and there's so many mitzvahs that make sense. But why is that? If God is so beyond what if Hashem wants, then even our intellect, even things that make sense, should also be not based on your seichel, but based on God's will that you should use your seichel. So even your seichel becomes permeated with godliness. But it's just emunah, okay, boss, whatever you say. So why is it that God left certain mitzvahs not understandable? Because if every single mitzvah would make sense, we would never have the exercise of believing. It wouldn't be so easy to relate to the idea that Hashem's commandments are beyond comprehension. We have to have the exercise that not everything God is still above and beyond. So he left certain mitzvahs not to be understood. We have that exercise of soviv kol almim, which is the idea of chukim. But yet he had many mitzvahs that are understandable, that our seichel can relate to as well, to give us the feeling that even our seichel belongs to him. Okay. Yosef the righteous, who was always connected with a level that transcends nature, he didn't need that. He should have conducted himself in a manner that reflected a loftier level of bitachon, the soviv kol almim bitachon. He was punished because he failed to live up to his standard. Okay, to this standard. Now, very important part here, 5. The difference between these two levels of bitachon doesn't only apply when there are miracles going on in your life, and Hashem is just giving people what they need in a very miraculous way, showering us with miracles on a daily basis. But even when one does fashion a conduit for God's beneficence, even when one is using derech hateva, there's 2 ways to look at teva, 2 ways of how one looks at the world, the natural world. A person following the first approach, the Mamalik kol almim approach, is required to make a conduit because God relates to him in such a way that divine beneficence is elicited according to the pattern of nature. Therefore, he is the kind of person that needs to work on this belief that nature, in spite of the fact that it's natural and not miraculous, still is under God's control on a constant basis. Accordingly, nature and natural processes acquire a certain standing in his eyes. Nature is real. As a result, he must seek a conduit and an instrument through which God's blessings will be conveyed to him. This is not the case with a person who trusts at a loftier level, who needs to take no steps whatsoever. Page 221. Oops. Only to trust in God. The process of nature are of absolutely no importance in his eyes. This is why he need not seek out a conduit or instrument. He doesn't have to seek any kind of, livelihood or speak to people, conduits or instruments. He doesn't need all that. That's not the bother. He doesn't look at nature as something that, now that I have it, now that I have, as we can soon learn, now that I have food on my table, now it's mine. When I didn't have it yet, it's in God's domain. He doesn't feel that the food on his table is any closer to him than it would be if he would need a miracle to bring it on the table. That's not a normal level to live on. This is a person who actually sees nature as God's handiwork on a constant basis. This is why he need not seek out a conduit. Even when a natural conduit or instrument for his livelihood does exist, like the story we just mentioned before with Rabbi Yesa, who had his food on the table, and he still davened to Hashem to give him food. He does not consider his livelihood to be any closer to him because of it than it would be if the conduit did not exist. since neither the conduit nor the instrument in its own right is of any importance in his eyes. His sole perception of the situation is that he receives everything directly from God. Indeed, he views even the conduit or the instrument as created for him by God, together with his livelihood. It's like it's happening over every single second. It's like another miracle. Hashem is allowing the food on the table to be on the table. He is so in touch with the source of all of nature, the source that nature is, it's almost like when he davens for it, he's not davening for his own needs. It's not my need. He has no needs. I don't even have needs. God has a need for me to express his kindness. So therefore I will daven. In other words, the food on the table it's not there. It's in Hashem's domain, and he's davening. What's his davening for? His davening is so that Hashem's kindness will be expressed in the world. Since neither the conduit nor the instrument in his own right of any, his sole perception of the situation is that he receives everything directly from God. Indeed, he views even the conduit or the instrument as created for him by God, together with his livelihood. Just repeat that again. That he looks at everything as one. Hashem is not given it to him until he's able to ask and express and express Hashem's kindness that he finally gave it to him. This is also why Rabbi Asa, the elder, would say, we will not prepare the meal, it's not mine, until it is given by the king, even though he had his food for that day. Rabbi Asa's approach to Bitachon was such that he perceived every single activity not as his own doing, but as made possible by Hashem. Hence, even when the food was already in his home and needed only to be prepared, he felt that it was not his food that he was taking and preparing, but that it was being given by the king. He felt the same way he would feel when he would have to come onto a miracle. At that very moment, God was giving it to him. Therefore, he felt it necessary to request this food of Hashem. It's in Hashem's domain. What right do I have to take it? If I daven and I ask Hashem to give it, then I have a right to take it. Just as he would ask Hashem for his food when it was not in his possession. So this is the trick of real Bitachon, is when you have a feeling of it's all up to Hashem, even when you seem to have no need to have Bitachon, even when you have it on your table. Everything's there already. Because here's a person who doesn't look at nature through the eyes of nature. He looks at it as another miracle of godliness. We also understand that nature is miraculous. It's not the same, but Hashem cherishes the laws of nature, and we start to feel, nature is real. Like the story with the Meraglim. Meraglim had questions. Hashem can't take his own people out. How could they have questions about God's power of taking them out, of bringing them into Eretz Yisrael? They saw miracles on a daily basis, didn't they? While they're having a meeting, they were eating man, and they're questioning God, and he won't be able to do this for us. Yeah, the seven, they're too powerful for him. What's going on over here? The answer is, God can do everything he wants when he wants. But he wants nature, now it's nature. And according to the laws of Teves, we stand no chance. If God decrees that nature is now the reality, by his will, true. He's the author. But by his will, he ordained that the laws of nature our life is conducted according to the laws of nature. Then I guess we're stuck. And that was their problem. They didn't see Hashem in the same way. They saw Hashem only as a miracle maker when he did miracles. But they couldn't see that even miracles they didn't have the same view when Hashem was, they didn't see miracles in nature as one. That was their problem. And that was the mistake they made. Story with Esther, Hamalka. What does Esther Hamalka say? Let me fast for 3 days. Then I'll go into Achashverosh. Wait a second. Who are you trusting, God or Achashverosh? If everything comes from Hashem, so you can fast. Yeah, you can fast and say, kill him. Who needs Achashverosh? Let Achashverosh go drop. Who cares about Achashverosh? It's not up to him. God is doing it. Why Achashverosh? And if you believe that nature is nature, listen, we gotta, Shushan Washington is Washington, this is how it is. We're living in Golos. We're living in this Olam Hazeh Agashmi. Didn't Hashem create the laws of nature? respect it. We have to go into Achashverosh. You have to use diplomacy. Diplomacy? So don't fast. If you look like a scarecrow when you go in there, he's not going to look at your face. You have to look beautiful in the eyes of Achashverosh for him to want to respond to you. So make up your mind. Was Esther relying on Hashem? Then why go into Achashverosh? She's relying on the laws of diplomacy. Then keep the laws right. Don't fast. Why are you fasting for 3 days? Imagine what you look like after 3 days. Remember, you say she should have gone to a beauty parlor and done her and make herself look the most beautiful as possible to get the guy excited about her. Either forget about Achashverosh completely, just say Tillim, or be normal. How could you be? The answer is she believed, unlike the Meraglim, she believed that nature is also another channel for how Hashem is not hiding, and now he's not here anymore. He created it. See you later. Now nature takes over. He's working through nature like he works through miracles. There are 2 different roadways. He goes the same God. This works through 2 different roadways. Nature is just as much miraculous as God is. That being the case, yes, I will go into Achashverosh, but I'm not trusting him. I don't look at him as if of course I'm gonna fast. I have to fast because that was our sin. The sin was that they ate at the banquet. So we have to undo that. That's the main thing. And then secondly, yeah, we have to also go through the laws of nature, but she didn't view nature like a person normally would. So here, let's finish the Sikha here, but there's a aura here on the bottom. There's a footnote 55, but I'm not gonna, it's a little bit complicated. I'll leave that footnote out. There's another Sikha that is connected to this Sikha also, and this is a different Sikha in Chumash Bamidbar Parshas Balak. I'm gonna just give it out, and it's connected to Bitachon again. On page 404. Let me,
One more.
yeah. So by the way, in that Sikha, the Rebbe explains why the Alter Rebbe in the second edition, so on Shabbos.
Is that one we already have?
Right? No, this is waiting here, 404. This is the one. Yeah. Going back to that Sikha, the answer to the question, if you're on the level of Rabbi Yosef Seva, the Rabbi Yosef the elder, or if you look at the natural world as another miracle of Hashem, you don't from one moment get caught up in the reality of nature, and you believe every single second another miracle is happening. And the food on the table is not yours until you are given permission to use it with your prayers, then it's okay to even express that on Shabbos. On Shabbos, we don't ask Hashem for our personal needs. To be needy takes away from the whole. Shabbos is a royal day. To act like a needy beggar, I need. If you have needs, leave it for the next day. Shabbos, we're above needs. Hashem is in our lives, and we're connecting to Hashem. And we don't have personal needs on Shabbos. So if you look at the laws of nature as something that's very real, created by God, Hashem is the author. Yes, He created it. I don't have any questions about that. But once He created it, now I give it. It has its own standing. Then the food on the table is your food. And then when you don't have it, you have needs. Your needs are, Hashem, provide me. On Shabbos, we don't daven for our personal needs. But if you're on the higher level, and the only reason why you're davening is not because you need, you're not even there. It's Hashem has a need. Hashem needs you to express a thank you to his kindness. In other words, Yosef Seba felt that his prayer wasn't even a prayer to answer his own personal problems. It was another means. Why do I have needs? Why is it that I need to daven? So Hashem's chesed, his kindness, can be expressed. In other words, you don't have any. Hashem has needs. Hashem needs you to express his kindness. That you can do on Shabbos also. To express Hashem's needs is okay on Shabbos as well. So therefore, the Rebbe says in the second edition of the Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe was talking about a much higher level. The Alter Rebbe's revised edition of Shulchan Aruch was according to Kabbalah, not according to Halacha. In Kabbalah, when you learn Kabbalah, learn Chassidus, then your view of the world is completely different, and then you're able to even express Bitachon on Shabbos too, because the Bitachon is not a need, personal need. It's expressing what Hashem needs of you, not your personal need. What I want to just quote here from this sikha, not the beginning of the sikha, even the beginning of the part that I made copies of, but that been a very, very important part of the sikha. Let's turn to
This means that the Torah instructs a person to create a natural conduit.
yes.
That's the last line of the first page, leading to the rest of the page.
No, not there. It's actually the yeah, on page 409. Page 409, navigating the slippery slope. There's a difference between first person and a second person. The first person who believes in the laws of nature, and it's very real for him, will not only have a different level of, it's not only a difference in his heart, how he feels about the laws of nature, but it will also have an effect on his everyday life, as opposed to a person who is on a higher level. Let's see on page 409, 6, navigating the slippery slope. The difference between these two approaches, the two approaches we mentioned in the previous sikha and also mentioned in this sikha, does not begin with a distinct point of conduct. At the outset, the Yetzer Hara does not try. Hold on a second. Hold on, I'm mistaken. I just made it. I meant 408, my mistake. 408, integrity in thought, speech, and action. Okay. The difference between the above two approaches, which was what we also mentioned in the previous sikha, how to view nature, is not only a matter of how one experiences and feels the attribute of trust in Hashem. Instead, the manner in which one experiences this attribute of Bitachon leads ultimately to differences in one's actual conduct in the realms of thought, speech, and action. It will have an effect, spill over in the way you conduct yourself on a daily basis. When what one has to do is perceived as a value in its own right, if you look at what you must do in the laws of nature as something separate, the laws of nature enjoy a certain standing in one's mind, then one's obligation in the realm of Torah and its commandments on one hand, and the requirement to do on the other hand, are perceived as two separate entities. In such a case, what happens if the two interests conflict? You have a cognitive dissonance, which means you have a conflict of two different things that are important in your life. Davening is very important. We know we daven every day, and we consider that to be important. Learning is important. How going to a shir is important. But so is making parnasa important. What happens if there's a conflict? Men have it more than women, but men daven with a minion. If I daven with a minion, I'm going to be late to work. And it's going to be a problem. Because the rules are, if you're late, it's going to cause me issues. So there's a conflict. On the one hand, I believe that davening is so important. On the other hand, I also believe that you got to be normal. You got to, be organized. Yeah, he should have been organized. There's no question about that. But what happens when there's a conflict It happens so many times where it's tzedakah. If I give this amount, I'm not going to succeed because listen, I know what's going on in my life and things aren't going so well. The way things are going, not going to work. There'll be a conflict and there'll be a war, a battle. And even if you win the battle, won't be an easy battle like you won. But what happens if you look at working to make parnasa as just another way of serving Hashem? How can one level of service to Hashem conflict with another level? Your davening and your business are all the same. One mitzvah does not conflict with another mitzvah. If you feel you're performing a mitzvah when you're going to work, you look at it as a roadway to serve Hashem. You don't look at it as serving yourself. You're serving Hashem. Hashem wants you to do this. That's the only reason why I'm doing it. I don't believe in the laws of nature per se. I believe in God. And for some odd reason, he wants us to go through nature. Well, I'm game. I'm with that. It's a mitzvah. Just like I do a mitzvah and I put on tefillin or I bench esrog or I hear the shofar. That's how I feel when I go to work. Then you think that coming late to work will take away your decision of maybe to daven a little longer? It can't. One mitzvah will never clash with another mitzvah. If you look at going to work and doing anything that's natural as a mitzvah of God, not serving yourself, you're serving Hashem, then there's never a conflict. And that's why it's so important to have that second level. You have the first level, you're going to always struggle in life when the two, and they very often conflict. You have people, you go to 770, see people davening at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know what their excuses is, but some of them struggle in parnasa and they can't daven. They have to go to work early in the morning, and you're not allowed to really be did. You're not allowed to go to work before you daven. I don't know what their head is, but they struggle very much. Listen, I can't make parnasa. I'm barely able to support the family. I can't daven. You can't daven too early at 4 o'clock in the morning. They'd be ready to do that, but they can't. You can't daven shach until it gets light. I have to go to work. I'll daven after I go to work. I can't wait a little longer. Can't. The conflict, and even if they decide no, I'm going to daven today, and that mitzvah, their connection to the mitzvah overweighs their belief in the laws of nature. It was a seesaw, up and down, yematz, struggles back and forth. But if you look at nature like Rabbi Yosef Seva did, or Yosef HaTzadik, it's another means of God's it's an expression of a lakus. Hashem is expressing himself. I don't see any difference with a miracle or nature. It's exactly the same to me. Then why would I have a conflict? It's two separate mitzvahs. Just like the mitzvah of tefillin is not going to, distract you from a mitzvah of putting on tzitzis or another mitzvah. They're two separate ways of serving Hashem, and one enhances the other, not contradicts the other. What the Rebbe says here in this page 2 of 408, and he starts saying it later on page 409 that the Yetzer Hara starts with a very slippery slope. It says, Hayom Omar Kach, today do this, tomorrow do this. The first day he says, I agree with you. I have thought it over, and yes, your Yetzer Hara says it's daven. You have your Yetzer Hara's approval. That's the problem. Once you need his approval, even for good things, the next day he said, you got my approval, right? You understand that I have to give you an approval. Well, now I don't approve. So now you're going to go a slippery slope. You're going to fall because you listen to his opinion about how you have to serve Hashem. So even when he's giving you the right views, he shouldn't be the one to give opinions about your service of Hashem. It should be based on Torah and mitzvahs, not based on how the Yetzer Hara feels about it. It's a very important page 409. If you want, you can keep it. If you want, you can give it back. But we'll end it over here.
The plague,
What?
the rest of the plagues and how they connect the hero and the
Yeah, I could do that, but I don't have it with me now. No rush. Okay, I'll do it next week. Very welcome.
I like the secret also, and you will understand one more.
What do you think?
It's positive feedback about the secret.
But you're not, you want his book back?
He hasn't asked me. So far, so good. You read any of it?
Almost all of it. I have
Oh, really?
yeah. I can picture where my bookmark is, but I don't remember what chapter.
What did I give you?
Hanukkah?
Hanukkah.
Um,
Are we gonna have to buy without you?
No, I just want to let you know, so you don't think I'm like.
Thank you so much.
You see, that's yours, right? Yeah. Oh, let me tell you about. No, you gave me one thing. About silver cola, you know, my cola. I don't know the way I have to say it. There's nothing. Trying to figure it out. The way I have to say, you wanna sew anything?
Yeah.
Thanks. First I have a book of Tere Ishtalchelu. Okay. The way I have to say, there's nothing higher or, you know, something more than legit. I feel like Maki, it's like, remember how Rabbi Majesty said that it just goes no matter what, it's just gonna go. Doesn't like that. Yeah, it will go. So whatever, if you have your bottle, that's how much it's gonna contain. But if you have a small cup, that's how much it's gonna contain. But the life is and so there's no limit. It's gonna go. I feel like how I said to the comment, it's gonna go. It's gonna go around the world. It's gonna be there forever.
Yeah.
And the mouth is the cleanest. It's deep. So maybe you have its own interpretation. Maybe it's something already